Praise the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to everybody that's here in the name of Jesus. Peace to everybody tuning in online, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're at. And also on the phone line, as we get into another Sabbath day evening. And it's a sad state of affairs in the world we live in that the Bible say in Revelation, well, I think it's Revelation 12. Yeah, Revelation 12, that Satan have deceived the whole world. Satan have deceived the whole world. And that's the way it is. And a lot of stuff that we've been doing in the name of God don't have nothing to do with God. And the average person don't know it. But you got warnings all over the Bible to let you know to look out for stuff like that. Matter of fact, Jesus said point blank in John, the 4th chapter. He told a young lady, he told a woman who really was trying to, tell him a little something about God. She thought she knew about God. She did compliment Jesus, called him a prophet, but she proceeded to try to tell him why he was a prophet, because you said this, and that's the way we've been worshiping. We worship like this, and you right. And then Jesus finally told her, he said, woman, you worship ye know not what. He said, you don't know what you worship. And that's the way it is. It's sad to say. That's the way a lot of people have been. Even many of us here was like that before we got real understanding of the Bible. But that's what he told her in John 4. He said, ye worship, ye know not what. Then he turned around and told her something else. He said, we know what we worship. He said, you don't know what you worshiping, but we know what we worship for salvation of the Jews. Because she was a Samaritan woman. And that just shows you how God started. He gave his word to Israel first, or which they was calling Jews at that time, which Paul said point blank, the Jew first, then the Gentile. So it's order to it. It's for everybody. The word is for everybody, but it is order to it. But Jesus let her know she was doing some stuff she didn't know what she was doing when it come to worshiping God. And that's the way it is in this world. Satan had to see the whole world. Matter of fact, Satan put out probably the biggest reverse psychology known to man, because it's really, brothers and sisters, it's like you could tell people, this Bible falling apart, forgive me. You could tell people what's in the Bible. You could tell them something about the Bible, and it's almost like they will accept anything but what's in the Bible. Almost anything goes. You can join Hare Krishna, but when you start talking about what's in the Bible, people have a problem with it. And that's amazing that you reject what's in the Bible, but then we go along with everything that's told to us. We've been following things that's not in the Bible. For instance, we just got through with, Christmas and so-called the New Year, and people follow that willingly. And even, Christmas is supposed to be about Christ. I guess they got his title on it, but we know better. It don't have nothing to do with Christ. But that's not in the Bible. We accept that. Then you say, well, I do something in the Bible. It's like we're going to be celebrating the Passover in a few months. People literally think something wrong with us for doing what the Bible say. Oh, you ain't got to do that no more. Why not? Who told you that? That's not in the Bible. Jesus celebrated it all his life, the Passover I'm speaking about. He celebrated it. Matter of fact, the Bible said he is the Passover. So you reject that and you grab hold to something that man has given us that don't have nothing to do with Jesus, called Christmas and Easter and all that. We're going to get into it. So that's the title, brothers and sisters. You reject God's law to keep your tradition. And that is the way it is. That's really a lot of our lessons, some of them anyway, are pretty much direct quotes from the Bible. And so this comes from Jesus. We're going to read in Mark 7. You reject God's law to keep your tradition. And that's what people are doing. They're doing it to this day. Mark 7, read what Jesus said right here. One verse, Mark 7 and 9, read it.
And he said unto them, Full well ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition.
See, now this is what Jesus was talking. Now keep in mind, he's talking to religious people too. People that think they know about God, call themselves worshiping God. But he had to tell them. He said, full well ye reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. So that's twofold. That's two problems you got. Not only are you, that's why I say all the time, when you follow something else that God didn't give you, you got two problems, because you're following something false, but at the same time, you're neglecting to follow something that he gave you. So that's the two problems. That's what he's telling you here. Full well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. Let's go to Exodus 20, and we're just going to read the commandments. We don't read them all the time. We're going to take time to read them, because people will make like it's really something wrong with doing anything in the Old Testament, including the Ten Commandments. You got some of the preachers talking about you don't need to even try to keep the Ten Commandments. This is one I'm always begging for tithe money too, which is a shame. You begging for tithe money, which is an old commandment law, and you got the nerve to tell people they don't even need to try to keep the Ten Commandments. Oh, you shouldn't even try, because he called it the Big Ten. Because you don't even need to try to keep the law, not even the Big Ten, because you just introducing sin. I said, this boy, he really on his way to hell. And that's Creflo Dollar, if you want to know who I'm talking about. I ain't scared. And he begging for tithe money all the time, ready to shoot people if they don't pay tithe money. He said that before. I wish we could do like we did in the old days. If you didn't, take you out. They used to take you out and stone you. We'd take you out back here and shoot you with a Uzi. That's what he said. Got him on tape saying it. But you worried about tithes, but you rejecting the rest of the law. Seem like you got your own agenda. And that's where a lot of them are. Exodus 20:1, read it.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which I brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
The amazing thing here, brother and sister, is that God himself is talking and people want to reject it. God himself spoke this. So the first thing he said, I am the Lord your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. He brought Israel. This was our first slavery he brought us out of, and he got some more to bring us out. But he's telling them that because he's giving them reason why they should obey him. I did some great stuff for you, just like God will do great stuff for us in our lives individually to get you to serve him. He'll get you out of jam that you in, not just to get you out so you can keep going about your way and sinning and doing what you want to do. Like I say all the time, I know people do it. People that told me. I done seen it happen. People get jammed up and they be praying, oh Lord, help me. Please, if you get me out of this, I'm going to do right. And then the Lord hear that and he expects you to do right after that. And he will even show you what's right, but some people don't follow through. So he's showing Israel, he said, look, I brought you out of Egypt, the house of bondage. Therefore, obey me. Verse 3.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Now, this is the Ten Commandments, brothers and sisters. So just pay attention to the count, because people have rejected it and changed it and flipped it over, giving us new stuff to believe in. Reject this and got us doing other things. So pay attention. So first of all, the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And we deal with this in detail some other time. But that must be important, brothers. This is the first thing come out of his mouth. Don't have no gods before me. So therefore, I like to ask the question, well, how can you have some gods before him when technically there are no other gods? Technically, God say all the time, he is the one and only God. That's what he say. He said he's the one and only God. There's no other God. So why would he give us the first commandment, said thou shalt have no other gods before me? because he know we making them up. We making them up as we go. He know we, and then again, how? Since there's no other gods, how are you going to have another God before him except by following something dedicated to a would-be God? So that's why it's important what you follow, what you do. People say, oh, it don't really matter. You can do this, I can do that. No, something has to constitute me having another God before the real God. We can't do our own thing. Something got to constitute that, brothers and sisters. So he said, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Just like Paul told you in the New Testament. He said, people preaching another Jesus. That means you can use the name of Jesus all day long. That don't mean nothing. You can use the name of Jesus, but if you following doctrine or teaching dedicated to not for him, then that's another one. For instance, Christmas. They say that's his birthday. That's a big lie. Don't have nothing to do with his birthday. But now, verse 4.
Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath.
Now this is the second commandment. First one, don't have no gods before me. The second one, similar. Don't make no graven images of nothing. Don't make no graven images in heaven about nothing. Don't make them and bow down to these images. Go ahead, finish that, verse 5.
Or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them.
Now, how you going to serve an image? He said, don't make no graven image of anything in heaven, in water, under the earth, on the earth, nowhere. Don't make no graven images and bow down to them. Thou shalt not bow down to them, thyself to them, nor serve them. How you going to serve an image? By following something dedicated to it. Just like people will say up and down, well, I'm not worshiping the Christmas tree. I don't worship a Christmas tree. Look, you're going through too much trouble. You're going through too much trouble for that tree. You serving it. You're going out there getting you a tree, spending all that time, spending precious time and money. I'm talking about people they be working their tail off to get ready for Christmas, to get ready for December 25th. They be working up late at night. I got to decorate the tree. You crazy. Decorate the tree for what? It don't make no sense. So you serving something, brothers. So that's what he means. He talking about images. How can you serve it? By doing stuff dedicated to it. That's old tree worship. They worship trees in ancient times, and they giving you the same old customs, and we following suit with it, brothers and sisters. Tradition. So he said, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. Why not?
For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God.
He's not playing either. Go ahead.
Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me.
See, that's how dangerous God is. He won't just get you. He'll get your children down the line. And we wonder why we born in slavery. That's another lesson. Go ahead.
And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments.
But he's merciful if you love him and keep his commandments. But now, that's a long commandment. That's one of the longest. Between that and the Sabbath, they are the longest. That's the second commandment. First one, I want to just keep counting them for a reason. The first one, don't have no gods before me. The second one, don't make no graven images and bow down to them, right? Now, number 3, go ahead.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain.
So this is verse 7, but it's the third commandment. Don't take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And you can do that easy. It's not just cursing and saying all the words that people say. You do that easy by calling yourself worshiping God and breaking his commandments, doing things contrary to him. Read Proverbs 30 on your own time. He explained that to you. But he said, don't do it. Don't take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Why not?
For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
That's the third commandment. What's the fourth one? Verse 8.
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
This is the fourth of the 10 commandments. These are utmost important, brothers and sisters. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. This is what we hear tonight. We'll be here tomorrow because we recognize in this day, the Sabbath day, the only day that the Lord give you to set aside to honor him. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. What day? Go ahead.
6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. And in it thou shalt not do any work.
See, it's the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. It's his Sabbath. So we can't believe the hype like they done gave us. Oh, well, that's the Jew. That's for the Jews. That's the Jewish Sabbath. Nope, that's wrong. It's the Lord's Sabbath. And it's just as important as all the other commandments. It's one of 10. So you can't make it 9. Even though I ain't going to lie to you, God is my witness. I saw a preacher on TV. He tried to make it 9. He tried to make it 9. He caught himself and said it. I couldn't believe because I know what he was Church of God in Christ in Chicago. I couldn't believe, first of all, that's why I stopped to listen to it. I couldn't believe that he was saying, you got to keep the commandments. I said, what? Because most preachers not saying that. He said, you got to keep the commandments of God. You got to keep the 10 commandments. I mean 9. I said, what? And then he mentioned it. He said, because we ain't got to do the Sabbath no more. I'm like, who told you that? I said, you was doing good. Then you messed up. How in the world you going to make it 9 commandments? James, the 2nd chapter, tell you, if you break one, you break them all. Now, I hear people quote that, but they misuse it. They quote it, say, if you break one, you break them all. So, like, don't try to keep them. That's not what James is saying in James, the 2nd chapter. James is saying, don't neglect any of them. Because if you break one, you break them all. So if you just ignore one, you're wasting your time if you just ignore one. That's what James is saying. Don't waste your time. Keep them all is what he's saying. And you could do it. So look, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day now is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. So there's no Jewish Sabbath and no Christian Sabbath. That's a man-made philosophy. It's only one Sabbath, it's the Lord's, and it's the one, he gave to Israel of the Jews, because the Jew first, then the Gentile. The 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it what?
Thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth.
See, this is a long commandment, just like the second one. He going through a lot of emphasis on it. He took you to the creation. So it can't be about the Jews, because there wasn't no Jews in Genesis. The 2nd chapter. 1st and 2nd chapter, when he created everything. He said, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth. Go ahead.
The sea and all that in them is. And rested the 7th day.
He took you to when he rested. He did it, and he's telling us to do it. And it has big significance, even down to the end of the world. But go ahead.
Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
He blessed the day, and he made it holy. No other day do he talk about like that. That's why you should treat this day special. It hasn't changed. Jesus did it, because Jesus didn't sin. Go ahead, verse 12. So that's the 4th commandment. First one, don't have no gods before him. Second one, don't make no graven images, bow down to him. Third one, don't take his name in vain. 4th one, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. What's the 5th one? Verse 12.
Honor thy father and thy mother.
Honor thy father and thy mother. Go ahead.
That thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
So that's the 5th one. All this is good stuff. Now the rest of them, they all going to apply to your neighbor. That's why he said, love your neighbor as yourself. Because all these apply to your neighbor, the rest of them. The first ones applied to God. They apply directly to God. And that covers loving the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind. That's why those are the 2 greatest commandments. On those commandments, everything rests on. Loving the Lord with everything you got, loving your neighbor as yourself. Go ahead, let's read them. Verse 13.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not kill. Self-explanatory. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
That's self-explanatory. What else?
Thou shalt not steal.
That's self-explanatory. So those are 6, 7, and 8. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. That's the 8th commandment. What's verse 9? What's the 9th commandment? 16.
Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
So that covers lying. Lying on your neighbor even. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. That's number 9. That's the 9th commandment. Don't bear false witness on your neighbor. Now, number 10. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor.
Now, the 10th commandment, it covers, period. It covers coveting. It covers that lusting after things. That's why the Bible tells you to be content what you got. Even if you, nothing wrong with want to have more, but everything is in perspective, and you're not lusting after something that somebody else have. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, his wife, his manservant, maidservant, ox, ass, anything that is thy neighbor. That's the 10th commandment. Now, we're going to look at this history. Unfortunately, I didn't print no copies, but you can get a copy of all of them when the lesson over, anybody that want a copy. But this is, according to the lesson, this is from the Catholic Family News, this newspaper that I subscribe to, used to subscribe to it. I don't get it no more. Catholic Family News. So, and they are encouraging people in this. This is kind of old. This go back to the 90s, I believe. But haven't nothing changed since then. This is still their doctrine. They're encouraging people in this newspaper, which the Catholics do. They call themselves encourage people to keep the 10 commandments. That's what they call themselves doing. But if you pay close attention, they done alter them. And they putting their own spill on. So I'm going to have them read it. Just read Dear Subscriber. We're going to read that because this, that's from the editor. He trying to tell you what this is about. Go ahead.
How many of your relatives and friends do you think know the 10 commandments and what they mean? You might be surprised at the number of people, especially among young Catholics, who don't. Basic catechism has not been taught in most Catholic schools for over 30 years. Catholic Family News provides readers with information, questions, and answers to all aspects of catechism. We know this is an invaluable service that can save many people from sin and lead souls toward heaven. We have obtained a pocket-sized version of the 10 Commandments, which we will send to you free when you take this opportunity to renew your subscription to CFN for another year.
Of course, they trying to get some money. But anyway, go ahead. Read say his name.
John Veneri.
So that's the editor, John Veneri. Okay, so now, he got a list of the 10, they list the 10 Commandments in this article. So if you pay attention to the list, just read the 10 Commandments that they got. Go ahead and read all of that. 10
Commandments. These are the commandments which God gave to man to guide him to happiness in this life and in the next.
Okay, so they put that in there. Go ahead.
Number 1, I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me.
Okay, so that's number 1, according to the Catholic Family News. Go ahead.
Number 2, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain.
Some missing already. They jumped to say, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. If you remember when we read them out the Bible, that was number 3. What we missing here? I'm talking about totally missing. One of the longest ones that we read and emphasized. Number 2, which is, don't make no graven images and bow down. They have completely deleted it. Completely deleted. Of course they have, because all these cathedrals, that's all they got. It's statues and images. I've been to one. I went to just see how crazy it could get. I went to St. Patrick's Cathedral years ago in New York City, because it's like a tourist site anyway. Statues all over the place, but you can go anywhere. Just peep inside. I even used to make deliveries and pickups in Chicago on the near right by downtown, near West Side, kind of, by what they call the Loop. I make deliveries and pickups. I used to pick up and deliver to a place where they was making these statues at. It smelled like death in there. But this is where they was making a lot of them at. But that's why they omitted that, because they have made that okay. So they conveniently, you're going to try to preach to somebody the 10 Commandments, and you already right away then made it 9. But now keep in mind, he said 10. Because they kind of slick. They smart enough not to just say it's 9 now. He said 10, so they're going to come up with 10. But go ahead. So they said number 2, don't take the name of the Lord in vain, which we know that's the 3rd commandment. But go ahead.
Number 3, remember thou keep holy the Sabbath day.
Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. But what they say about that?
They say it's on Sunday.
Are they saying it there?
Yeah, going to church on Sundays and holy days.
Okay, so it said it commands going to church on Sunday. That ain't what the Bible say. And holy days. And they holy days are what we call holidays. God's holy days, they don't recognize because we done got away from that. So that's what they say. The 3rd one is, which really is the 4th one, they got it talking about the Sabbath day, but they didn't change it to Sunday. But go ahead, now read the rest of them.
Number 4, honor thy father and mother.
Well, really, that's 5 because we behind. We short already because they deleted number 2. But go ahead.
Number 5, thou shalt not kill.
Go ahead.
Number 6, thou shalt not commit adultery. Number 7, thou shalt not steal.
So they ain't messing with none of these. They just off one, though. Go ahead.
Number 8, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
Okay, so now, which is number 9, they call it number 8. So they got to come up with 2 out of the last one. So what's number 9?
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife.
That's what they made that number 9 by itself. Now what's number 10?
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's good.
Oh, so they just split number 10 up. They split it up. When it's all about coveting, everything, it covers all. He didn't split up, don't covet your wife into a commandment. No, that's the whole commandment. But that shows you how crafty it can be. But now, let's go back to the Bible. Let's go, and like I said, anybody want a copy of it, you can get a copy afterwards. Let's go to Leviticus. I'm sorry, no, we're going to look at another, we got to look at another encyclopedia. New World Encyclopedia, because they messed up the Sabbath day, so I do want to read about this. So that's on this one under Sunday. New World Encyclopedia under Sunday. Read that.
Sunday, the first day of the week. All Christians observe this day as a holy day in memory of the resurrection of Christ.
Okay, so now it says Sunday, right off the bat, it's not trying to hide, it's the first day of the week. See, it's not like we can't figure this out. People say, oh, you don't know what day is what. No, we know what day is what. It's on the calendar. They know it. It's in the encyclopedia. They know what day is what. They didn't try to change it from the 7th day to the first day. That's what they call themselves doing. They got tradition that said we go to church on Sunday, the first day, instead of going on the 7th day. That's what they doing. So that's why the encyclopedia tell you what it is. Sunday, the first day of the week. Then it tell you the script. Well, all people, the Christians, observe it as a holy day in honor of the resurrection of Christ. Well, the Bible don't say that, though. The Bible don't say to do that. And furthermore, we can prove he didn't rise on Sunday anyway. He rose before Sunday got there. But go ahead, keep reading that.
Since the beginning of the 4th century, Sunday has...
Keep going.
Since the beginning of the 4th century, Sunday has been established as the Lord's day by the church.
Now, when they say church, they talking about the Catholic Church, because they the ones perpetuated all this stuff. Since the beginning of the 4th century, when was that? Since the beginning of the 4th century, that's 300 A.D. We can get specific when Constantine, a Roman emperor, made it a law in 321 A.D. That's the 4th century, 300 A.D. That's when they come up with, in other words, back in the 1st century when Jesus was on the scene and the apostles was on the scene, wasn't nobody observing Sunday. They wasn't observing Sunday. Jesus and the apostles all observed the 7th day, the real Sabbath. Man got caught up on this later on. That's why I tell you the 4th century. Why wait till the 4th century if it's something that God was changing to? Because that's what they say. First of all, the Bible said God don't change. But they say, well, you know, God changed. He let us change. That's what the Catholics will tell you. You find a Catholic priest and ask, why you go to church on Sunday when, you know, it's supposed to be the 7th day? They say that God gave them the authority to change it. And they use as proof that God gave them the authority to change it, is that everybody listening to him. Everybody going to church on Sunday, except a few of us that got some sense. So they use that as proof, see, because y'all following it. Even they tell Protestants that, because some Protestants kick on the Catholics and be saying, oh, y'all wrong, y'all doing that Mary worship. And the Catholics will turn around and tell them, say, look, y'all following us. Why you go to church on Sunday? If you call yourself believing in the Bible, why you going to church on Sunday? That ain't in the Bible. You doing that because we told you to do it. They tell them that in a minute. So they giving you the line that it changed, but it really didn't change. Go ahead, read a little more of that.
Since the beginning of the 4th century, Sunday has been established as the Lord's Day by the church, a special day to be sanctified by rest from secular work and by public worship. The old Teutonic peoples held the day sacred to the sun.
See, it was old sun worship anyway. This is how crafty Satan is. But now we got this tradition of going to church on Sunday, and we reject the commandment that the Lord gave us in the Bible. That's good. That's enough of that. Let's go to Leviticus 23 now. Back to the scripture. Back to the scripture. Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. And pick it up at verse 1. Read it when you get it.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying.
Now this is God talking in the law. This is him talking himself. A lot of people belittle stuff, say, oh, that's Moses, and that's for the Jews. That's the Mosaic law. First of all, understand, brothers and sisters, God himself is talking. And the Lord spoke unto Moses. That's some big stuff. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying what?
Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocation.
See, here go his holy days, holy gatherings. That's what holy convocation. Here go his holy occasions that you're going to get together. And we ain't going to find none of the ones that we follow. And that's why I say this is the biggest reverse psychology in the world going on, that you supposed to do everything but what the Bible says. It's a lot of people act like if you try to do what the Bible says, you sinning. You better not. You can tell them you're doing anything, but tell them you just, well, I keep the holy days in the Bible. Why you do that? Like that's bad. They want to come up with all kind of cliche. Oh, that was done away with. That was done away with. That was nailed to the cross. Well, I don't know why would God do away with everything he say and keep everything that you say? That don't sound like God to me. It sounds like you. Everything that God says is done away with, nailed to the cross. Everything that man had made up is good and we supposed to follow. That don't add up, brothers and sisters. God said here, tell the children of Israel concerning the feast of the Lord. These are his feasts, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts. He said it again, verse 3.
6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest.
See, now the first constant gathering or holy day, holy occasion is every 7th day. You work 6 days, just like in the 10 Commandments, but he got other holy occasions besides that one. But the first one is the weekly Sabbath, every 7th day. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest. What is that?
And holy convocation.
That's an holy convocation. That's why we get together every 7th day. Go ahead.
Ye shall do no work therein.
It's the day you don't do no work. So if you're going to take one day and make it special, why not do the 7th day, which we call Saturday? You can find that out by looking on your calendar. We just looked in the encyclopedia. They said Sunday is the first day. Why not just do what the Bible say? It's what he said. He said, the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You should do no work therein. What is it?
It is the Sabbath of the Lord.
Oh, it's not the Sabbath of the Jews? He didn't say that. See, there's no Jewish Sabbath and there's no Christian Sabbath, brothers. That's a man-made cliche. And people believe cliches like they biblical. A lot of people believe. Like I was talking to a sister in Philadelphia last week. And she was telling me, and I said this plenty of times, and she was telling me, she said, I was going to one of these preachers, and I just knew he was giving me the word of God. And I was quoting it. I was quoting all the scriptures that he would give. I used to quote them. And then when I started listening to the real word, I found out that wasn't even scriptures. I was quoting this stuff he said. I say that's what a lot of people do because it be sounding good. Like they say, oh, well, that's the Jewish Sabbath. And see, we Christians got our Sabbath. That sounds good, but what verse is that? They can't tell you. It's not in the Bible. The Lord say in the Bible that the seventh day is a holy convocation. Ye shall do no work there. Is it the Sabbath of the Lord? Where?
In all your dwelling.
In all your dwelling. Now that's the weekly gathering, holy day, every seventh day. But he got yearly ones too that come through the year. Just like man done changed everything. They didn't reject what God say and they keep this tradition. So they didn't change the seventh day Sabbath. They reject that and everybody go to church on the first day, Sunday. Then God got yearly Sabbaths, holy days, i.e. the Passover, unleavened bread, Pentecost, Memorial Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles. He got those, but we don't do none of those nowadays as a whole. People want to do, they want to do New Year, they want to do Easter, they want to do, everything, Halloween, anything, Thanksgiving, Christmas. You want to do everything. None of that stuff is in the Bible. Can't do what's in the Bible. Something wrong with you. You in a cult if you do what's in the Bible. That's what's really crazy. Because we label it as a cult because we doing what the Bible say. So we're going to get into those. Verse 4.
These are the feast of the Lord.
Again, they the feast of the Lord. Go ahead.
Even holy convocations.
Holy occasions, convocations, gatherings. Go ahead.
Which ye shall proclaim in their season.
Oh, now these are the seasonal ones. Not every seventh day like the weekly, seasonal. Seasonal. Go ahead.
In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
That's who Passover it is, by the way. It's the Lord's Passover. You ain't going to find none of this list where you find, and you can read the rest of this chapter, he give them all. You won't find Easter, you won't find Christmas, you won't find Thanksgiving, Halloween, you won't find man-made New Year. Won't find none of it. Skip over to verse 33. We're going to look at another one. Just get to the end because notice he said at verse 5, in the 14th day of the first month. So the Passover comes in the first month. In the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover. That comes in the first month. And that comes in the springtime. So that even tells you something about the new year. The new year is in the spring. That's when the Passover comes. That's why every year they put the Ten Commandments on, which commemorates Israel coming out of Egypt. They put it on in the spring around the Passover, which is at the same time as they celebrate Easter. See, Satan gives you an alternative to doing what God say. That's why the title is, you reject God's law to keep your tradition. That's what people doing. So the Passover is in the first month. That happens in the spring. But toward the end of the year, what does he give you? Skip down to verse 33 and read it.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying.
Again, God's still talking. This is him talking. So we can't belittle this, act like, oh, that's something Moses made up. Go ahead.
Speak unto the children of Israel, saying. The 15th day of this seventh month.
Okay, now this is in the seventh month. So now we're getting down, because he conclude his feast in the seventh month, because he conclude things with 7. And this is right before the weather break. The weather is getting ready to break, so he called it toward the end of the year, because now in the winter, God don't have no festivals in the wintertime. You know, man and came up with some stuff in December and January. God's festival ends in what we call the fall in October, because that's how his months go. Start in the spring, so by the time you get to the fall, you in the 7th month. That's when it ends. That's why he gave you this. Speak unto the children of Israel, say, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be what?
The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord.
Oh, it's the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, I know the average person could have been in church all their life. They ain't never heard of that. A lot of people never heard of that. The Feast of Tabernacles. It's like it's speaking tongue. It's speaking a foreign language. But you would think that Halloween or something, which is a religious observance. Halloween is religious. It started out religious. They even twisted it up now. But hallow means holy. So really Halloween, technically it stands for holy evening. If you look it up, it'll tell you it's holy evening. It's really the feast day that the Roman Catholic Church started is November 1st. That's the feast day, All Saints Day, right? Somebody said All Saints Day. So in the old days, they would dress up like saints, dead saints. It's All Saints Day, November 1st. So what is Halloween? It's the eve before they started celebrating. It's the holy evening of November 1st. That's why it's called Halloween, holy evening. That's what it's supposed to be. Now, that's the only thing people heard of in the fall. Or you got Thanksgiving. They come a little later. You got that? But what's wrong with this right here? What's wrong with it? Why do we need to do away with what we read in the Holy Bible? This is not good enough for us. Read that again, verse 34.
Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord.
Unto the Lord. This is still good. It has great meaning too. It's even pointing the stuff down to the end of the world. We're not dealing with it, but that's what it's about. But it's in the Bible. Even if you don't know what it means, you should be trying to figure it out because it's in the Bible. God is saying, do it. And he's not saying do this other stuff. Let's go to Exodus 12. Exodus 12. And we're going to verify something we just read. Exodus 12. 12 and 1. Read it when you get it. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying,
God's still talking. And that's amazing. People they just want to do away with the whole Old Testament because they think Jesus is giving them something new, but really Jesus was back here talking. So they want to just do away with all of this. And this is God talking. And again, the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt. This before they left. They was on their way out now. And he about to do the last number on Pharaoh. So he told them what?
This month shall be unto you the beginning of months.
This month shall be unto you the beginning of month. Now, this is common knowledge. Somebody was even put them in the footnotes that this is in the springtime. They even will say March, April. Because it depends on when the moon comes. So it's not like man's calendar. God's calendars don't work like man's calendar. So it's not March by itself. It comes sometime toward the mid to end of March or sometime toward the beginning of April. But it's in the springtime. This is common knowledge. And notice he have to say, brothers and sisters, even already, because man been doing their own thing, this month shall be unto you the beginning of the month. That means it wasn't for somebody else. Somebody else had their own. It shall be the first. Go ahead. Finish that. Read that second verse again.
Verse 2. This month shall be unto you the beginning of month. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
It shall be the first month of the year to you. And we know this in the spring again because that's when the Passover comes. And that's what he's getting ready to tell them. The Passover is the 14th day of this month. It's in the spring. But don't nobody know about this because they too busy recognizing something called Good Friday and Easter that man has concocted. And not doing what the Lord said. So don't nobody know about this. But this is the beginning of the month. And it makes sense, brothers and sisters. God's new year comes when things start to get new. When things start to come back to life. You're getting through the dead of winter. So when you get to the spring, that's the beginning. Things are coming back to life. Trees start budding. The weather going to be nice. The sun going to be out long. That's what God gave you as the beginning, which makes sense. Not in the middle of winter. Let's go look at the Encyclopedia Britannica read verse 3. We didn't read that. Go ahead.
Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb.
See, they had to get a lamb to prepare for the Passover, which was on the 14th day of the month. I just wanted to show you what was going on. It's the Passover, which we read in Leviticus 23, that you're going to have the Passover to the Lord on the 14th day of the first month. So they had to all get a lamb and keep it to the 14th day. Every man take to them a lamb. Go ahead.
According to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
A lamb for a house. So they all would get a lamb and they would keep it and kill it on the 14th day. Now, we're going to read, because we're doing stuff we don't know. We following man-made tradition we don't know. We're assuming they done gave you this new year. You're assuming that's it. Everybody celebrate. This is under Janus, Janus, which should sound kind of familiar. It's a what? Janus what? What does it say at the top?
Roman god.
Roman god. So what you mean, Janus, a Roman god? Now keep in mind, brothers and sisters, this is important because God didn't say for nothing the first commandment, don't have no gods before me. He know man is crazy enough to make up some stuff and worship it because there are no other gods really. But this is what man doing. And as a matter of fact, brothers and sisters, God said something about us as a people, Israel. He said, Israel in Jeremiah, he said, we the only people that change our gods. We had the real God. We don't want to keep worshiping him. Other people didn't really know the real God. They had false God, and they love him to this day. They won't let him go no matter what. That's why all this stuff, even in modern times, they didn't set it up to honor these ancient gods that they made up back in the day. That's why you getting a tree, putting it in your house, and decorate, because they honoring an ancient God. You in modern time, I mean, we got modern technology, and you still putting a tree in your house? And don't nobody even consider, like, why you do that? Because they still got you honoring these ancient false gods. Same thing why they got the new year January 1st, because they honoring Janus. That's where January come from. This is what he going to tell you. God told you when the new year came, it's in the springtime. But it's a Roman, Janus, a Roman god. Go ahead.
Janus, in Roman religion, the animistic spirit of doorways, and archways, Janus.
So they use the kind of like the opening, because again, it's beginning. So they had a little superstition about going through openings and doorways. Even the army was concerned with that. But really, it go to the beginning. But they got a two-faced coin on here with the picture of it. Read under that what it say, under the coin, what it say.
The worship of Janus traditionally dated back to Romulus and appeared even before the actual...
Read the caption of the picture.
The god Janus, beerless, Roman coin, in the Bibliothèque Nationale, Paris.
So this coin they got stored up somewhere in Paris, and it's a picture of it, which is a two-faced person looking one way, the other one way, supposed to be looking toward the past and toward the future, because that's what they saying with New Year. That's why they got people doing New Year resolution and all that kind of stuff. So then read a little bit of that paragraph.
The worship of Janus traditionally dated back to Romulus and appeared even before the actual founding of the city of Rome. Okay, so that's way, way, way before Jesus and everything. Romulus, which is one of the so-called founders of Rome, back in 700-800 BC. But go ahead. There were many Janni in Rome. These were usually freestanding structures that were used for symbolically auspicious entrances and exits.
Okay, that's good. You can read the rest of that on your own. Flip over to the next page and just start at the top. Roman religion. Go ahead.
Roman religion, the earliest divinities. To an early phase where Janus invested the powers of the door and hearth, respectively, Janus, who, January, it was named after Janus.
January, it was named after Janus. Go ahead.
The Roman god of all beginnings.
The Roman god of all beginnings. All beginnings. That's why they were so fascinated with the doorways, because that was the entrance, the beginning of something. But the Roman god of all beginnings, read that, finish that.
January replaced March as the first month.
Oh, January replaced March as the first month. This is what Encyclopedia Britannica. This is what they saying. They understood it. January replaced March as the first month. And if you do the count of the months, you can see how it lines up that way. Because they named a lot of them after different, Roman emperors and stuff. Like they named June or July after Julius Caesar. I think it's July. They named August. Now, when you get to August, they named that after Augustus. Okay? So that's our, nowadays, that's our, what month is August supposed to be? It's supposed to be the eighth month. Okay? When you get to, but they saying January replaced March as the first month. So if you back up and started the first month in March, instead of, by the time you got to August, instead of it being the 8th month, it would be the 6th month. If you started there, right? Okay. Then when you get to September, see, those were basically named after the numbers anyway. So what does the word September come from? The word September come from 7. That's where it come from. It comes from 7 because it was the 7th month. But now it's the 9th month because they just switched it around. Same thing with October. October comes just like octagon, everything. Where does that come from? That come from 8. But now, since they didn't change it around, come from 10. Same thing with November. November come from what? 9. Even in Spanish, it's worded the same way. Okay, 10. The 10th month would have been in December. And that's what Deci it means 10. But since they done switched it, it's the 12th. So they didn't even bother to change that around. They should have switched them around and make them make sense. Because September means 7, but we got it as the 9th month. October means 8. We got it as the 10th month. November means 9. We got it as the 11th month. December means 10. We got it as the 12th month. Then you back to January, which they started it off with. But go ahead, read that last little bit of that down there. You can read it. What does it say?
Roman religion. Roman religion, beliefs and practices of the inhabitants of the Italian peninsula from ancient times. Some scholars regard Janus as the god of all beginnings and believe that his association with doorways is derivative. He was invoked as the first of any gods in regular liturgies. The beginning of the day, month, and year, both calendrical and agricultural, were sacred to him.
So this is why they got it in January. Ain't nothing coming to life. There's no crop starting to grow. You're in the middle of winter. You go from December to January. Ain't nothing is changing. Whereas the Lord's New Year, you're getting a real beginning because everything's coming back to life. That's good. Now let's go to Matthew, the 12th chapter. Matthew 12. Matthew 12. I'm going to touch on something else right quick. Because as you move on from the so-called New Year in January, you get to the springtime when it's the Lord's New Year. And instead of us doing what the Lord said in the Bible, dealing with the Passover, we doing something else. And Jesus warned you about that. 12 and 38. Read it.
Then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we will see a sign from thee. But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. And there shall no sign be given to thee, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth.
So Jesus gave them one sign that he was the one. He was the Messiah, the Christ. One sign he gave is that he was going to be in the grave, the heart of the earth, for 3 days and 3 nights. This is the key to really believing in Jesus, that he's the one that died and resurrected after 3 days and 3 nights later. Okay? That's important to understand him, but yet we let this tradition, this false religion tell us that Jesus died on Good Friday and rose Easter Sunday. So on the surface, you might say, well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you got 3 days and 3 nights. Well, really, you don't. Because first of all, they tell you it was a Friday evening. And he did die and get buried in the evening. It just was not a Friday. So you can't get 3 days and 3 nights from Friday evening to early Easter Sunday morning. But they don't care about the numbers that Jesus gave. They just trying to get you to worship this sun worship and get you and say that now the Sabbath day is changed to Sunday because he rose on Sunday, which he didn't. He didn't rise on Sunday. And we're going to see that in a second. I'm going to throw that in here. But he said 3 days and 3 nights. From Friday evening to early Sunday morning, you cannot even get 2 full days and 2 nights. You only get 2 nights and 1 day. The only full day you can count is Saturday. If he went in the grave Friday evening, as they say. You can't count Friday, and you can't count Sunday if he rose early Sunday morning, as it is said. But let's look at something else before we go further. Go to Matthew 28. Matthew 28. I'm going to throw this in there. It's not on the handout. Matthew 28. Because he said 3 days and 3 nights. He meant it. But they say, oh, he rose early Sunday morning, the first day of the week. Well, let's make sure he didn't, because that's a lie. It wouldn't make no sense anyway, according to what Jesus said, for him to rise on a Sunday morning. On any morning, it wouldn't make no sense. Matthew 28 and verse 1, read it.
In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week.
Now, wait a minute, brother and sister. First of all, what we're reading here is letting you know that the Sabbath is still the 7th day. That's why I say in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. See, because the Lord's days end, they start and end in the evening, from evening to evening, evening to evening. So, just like the Sabbath starts now, and it will end tomorrow night at sundown Saturday. So that would be the end of the Sabbath, and then once it get dark, that's the Sabbath is ended, and you gradually go, and the sun start coming up on the first day of the week. But when the sun go down, that's the end of the Sabbath. So that's the time frame we on. The Sabbath ended, and then gradually you went on as it began to dawn. That means it was still dark after the Sabbath ended, because it's dark. That's what he means. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. That means really it's still dark. That's what John 20 tell you. What happened at this moment as it began to get light after the Sabbath ended? What happened in that moment? Go ahead.
Came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre.
They came to the grave site, brothers and sisters. And they timed it to get there as it was about to get light. Because, you know, women definitely don't want to be at no graveyard in the middle of the night. So it's getting ready to get light. It's still kind of dark, but it's getting ready to get light. This is where it says it began to dawn. But again, the Sabbath still got to be the 7th day. And the first day is simply the first day. That's what it says in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. But we're reading this too because people, they use this, say, see, Jesus rose early the first day of the week, which is Sunday, which it is. That's what we call it. He rose early the first day. But it was about to get dark when they got, it was about to get light, when they got there, and he was already gone. Go ahead, verse 2.
And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men.
Go ahead.
And the angel answered and said unto the women, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified.
Now, the angel knew who he was seeking, who they were seeking. These women, Mary and the other Mary, you seek Jesus, which was crucified. Keep in mind, it said in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. What did he tell them? Go ahead, verse 6.
He is not here.
He is not here. So nobody saw him rising early Sunday morning, the first day of the week. When the women got there, it was literally still dark, about to get light on Sunday morning. He was gone because he had been gone all night. Because if he was going to be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights, and if he went in the grave in the evening, which he did, he got to come out in the evening. So we know he came out Saturday evening, right before it got dark, Saturday evening. But that's another thing. But the bottom line, when they got there early the first day of the week, he was gone. He said, he is not here. Go ahead.
For he is risen. And he said, come, see the place where the Lord lay.
He said, he is risen. He is not here, for he is risen as he told you, as he said. You can come see where he was at. Come see what the place where the Lord lay. You can see where, just like other scriptures say, they found the napkin that was on his head, the clothes all folded up. He was gone already. Now, let's go back to the encyclopedia, World Book Encyclopedia. This one is under Easter. And let's see. Yeah, sunrise service under Easter right there, this picture. It's a picture of the sun. That's what they doing. That's what they came up with. But go ahead. The caption, you can read the caption under the picture.
Sunrise services mark the dawn of Easter in many places. Mm-hmm. Thousands gathered in the theater of the Red Rocks near Denver, Colorado. Other services take place in the Hollywood Bowl of Hollywood and in the Hawaiian Punch Bowl near Honolulu.
So all these people, they get up early on Sunday to have sunrise service to commemorate Jesus rising from the dead on Sunday. But he wasn't. He was already gone. He was gone before. He was gone all night by the time they got there. But go ahead. Dates
of Easter. 1963 to 2000.
Go ahead.
Easter is one of the movable feasts of the Christian religion.
It
date varies each year, but it falls on the first Sunday after the full moon on or after March 21st.
Okay, so now, and that's just something the average person don't know. They don't have a clue. They just follow and do it when they tell you to do it. But I like to read stuff like that because people always question, like when we tell them we keep the feast, we keep the Passover, we keep unleavened bread. Well, how you know when it is? I say, you ain't never questioned the priest when they told you to be there on Easter. People don't even know how they calculate Easter. They don't even know. They just say they told you it's Easter. Everybody dress up and go to church. To this day, they don't have a clue how they arrived at Easter. But it's a mechanism how they come up with Easter. But the bottom line don't have nothing to do with Jesus, and it's doing what the title is. You are rejecting what God is saying and to keep tradition. This is man-made tradition. Now, let's go read the next thing. Pagan rites absorbed, right up under that. This last 2 million years, this history book, I actually got this one up here, the book itself. Last 2 million years, page 216. Read that.
Pagan rites absorbed. By a stroke of technical genius, the church, while intolerant of pagan beliefs, was able to harness the powerful emotions generated by pagan worship.
See, this is what they did, brothers and sisters. They call it tactical genius because they was able to get all these people to start following them, the Roman Catholics, that is. That's the church they talking about, by incorporating all the pagan worship into Christianity. So they didn't get rid of pagan worship. They just absorbed it, and they just started calling it Christianity. That's what they did. So they got the people to honor them because they let them keep doing their paganism in the name of Christianity now. So they kept the same stuff. So the writer of the encyclopedia called it a tactical genius because they was able to get the people to follow them that way. Go ahead.
Often, churches were cited where temples had stood before.
So where the people was doing their pagan worship, which is worship of another God, breaking the first commandment, where people was doing that, the Catholics who call themselves overseeing Christianity just said, look, we're gonna let them keep those pagan shrines. We just gonna turn them into cathedrals. That's why they got statues all over the place. That's why it's not about worshiping God, because it never was. Go ahead.
And many heathen festivals were added to the Christian calendar.
Many heathen festivals. So these are man-made festivals that they had. They added to the Christian calendar. And it's going to name a little bit. Go ahead.
Easter, for instance.
Easter, for instance. Go ahead.
A time of sacrifice and rebirth in the Christian year.
That's what they call it now. A time of sacrifice and rebirth in the Christian year. But where did it originally come from?
Takes its name from the Norse goddess Estra.
Oh, the Norse goddess. You mean that's Easter? That's what Easter really about? A goddess? Well, I imagine if God said don't have no gods before me, that would include having a goddess before him too. Well, that's what Easter is. So you can say, now people trying to get smart now because they know even the word, you could trace it back to Astarte, or let's say Estra here, the goddess, this fertility goddess. So people getting slick now. They don't even want to call it Easter. Even some churches say, well, it's not Easter, it's Resurrection Sunday. You a lie. It's what it is. How do you get there? You calculate it by the same way they calculated Easter. But go ahead.
In whose honor rites were held every spring.
Rites were held every spring to honor this goddess. Rites were held every spring. And guess what? They still held every spring to honor. You just called it Easter now. Go ahead.
She in turn was simply a northern version of the Phoenician earth mother Astarte, goddess of fertility.
See, all of them had their own version of this, brothers. It's all the different nations. That's why God said, don't follow the other nations. God chose one nation. This brings to light what Jesus said, told the woman, you worship ye know not what. This is the same thing apply here. People doing all this stuff. You don't know what they doing. But Jesus said, we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. These other people didn't know. They didn't even know no better. They doing all this false worship. Go ahead.
Easter eggs continue an age-old tradition in which the egg is a symbol of birth, and cakes which were eaten to mark the festivals of Astarte and Estra were direct ancestors of our hot cross buns.
So people don't know where they got Easter eggs. They got the kids finding Easter eggs. You don't even know where that come from. That's truly worshiping what you don't know. Even got the kids messed up. Got them hunting. We gonna have an Easter egg hunt. For what? Because you following the tradition, but at the same time you following the tradition, you rejecting what God said. He said, honor him, have a holy gathering on the Passover. Is that the end of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go to the last 2 million years. Page 144. I think it's on that one too. No, it's on, it's on that one too. Page 144, bottom right there. That's the mission of Augustine. So we're just going to move right on because we're moving through the whole year. Now we ain't going to deal with Halloween, none of that. But because we just had this one. Christmas. Let's see what the history book said, last 2 million years, page 144. Because we got to show you this stuff in history because it's not in the Bible. The Bible didn't tell you to do it. 144, last 2 million years. And that book is up here, like I said. If you want to read it and make sure it's in here, you can look at it because that's just a printed copy of it. But go ahead.
The mission of St. Augustine. Although the British church was revitalized by the Irish arriving from the West, a church based on remote monastic settlements could not cater for the spiritual needs of the ordinary people.
So this is way back in the day when they was getting this Catholic church established, and they was trying to figure out what they was going to do, how they was going to get the people to follow them. And this when they decide, don't mess with them, let them keep doing what they doing, we just going to call it Christianity. Because them pagans wasn't going to stop doing what they was doing. Just like when I was in college, I knew this guy, this Gentile guy, and he knew, and I found out a little bit about the word, was following the word then, because it's in the 80s. And this Gentile guy, he said to me, he called himself, he was a bona fide, called himself a witch. So he said to me, he said, well, y'all Christians, because he didn't know that I wasn't a regular traditional Christian. He just heard I believed in Jesus. But he didn't know I didn't follow that stuff like Easter. He said, well, y'all Christians took all our stuff anyway. All that stuff really belonged to us like Christmas, Easter. I said, yeah, I know. That's why I gave it back. because he just straight up pagan. He old school with it. He ain't called himself believing Jesus. He do this stuff for real, which is where they got it from. But go ahead, read it. Read it again. Start at the top.
The mission of St. Augustine. Although the British church was revitalized by the Irish arriving from the West, a church based on remote monastic settlements could not cater for the spiritual needs of the ordinary people. To deal with this situation, Pope Gregory, at the end of the 6th century...
So this going back to 500 A.D., long time ago. Because, brothers and sisters, all the stuff we got today that we doing, Christmas and Easter and all that stuff, it had to start somewhere. One thing we know where it didn't start is in the Bible. You don't see it in the Bible. So it had to start somewhere. They had to convince people to do this stuff. In the name of Jesus, really. They had to perpetuate that. So back in the 5th century, 600, Pope Gregory is telling these bishops how to do it, how to get the control of the people. What Pope Gregory say?
He sent St. Augustine to England at the head of a band of missionaries. The church they founded was closer in organization to the continental model with central bishoprics at Canterbury and York and subsidiary sees at places like Rochester and Dorchester. Their mission was largely successful, and by the middle of the 7th century, paganism was dwindling in England.
They said by the middle of the 7th century, paganism was dwindling in England because they call themselves going to get rid of paganism. But paganism wasn't dwindling. They just was calling it Christian now. That's the only way it was. It wasn't dwindling. You doing the same stuff in the name. You just changing the name on stuff. But that's what they said, so we'll go with it. Go ahead.
Worship of the old gods did not die out at once.
Oh, worship of the old God. Even the encyclopedia, even the history book called it the old God. Worship of the old gods did not die out at once. Go ahead.
Gregory himself advised his missionaries to leave the pagan shrines alone.
He told his missionaries, leave the pagan shrines alone. Just leave them alone. Don't mess with them. Don't tear them down and do nothing. Go ahead.
And try to introduce Christian worship only gradually alongside pagan practice.
See, they call themselves trying to give them some Christianity, but the pagans wasn't having it. Instead of the Catholics converting the pagans converted the Catholics because they changed everything to fit them. So he told them only introduce it gradually alongside Christian practices. Go ahead.
This mingling of Christianity and paganism is the reason why Christ's birthday is celebrated on December 25th, the dates of the pagans' winter festival.
See, the date of the pagans' winter solstice, winter festival. They already had that date. They already was honoring that. So they said, okay, we're going to give him keep on. We just going to call it Jesus' birthday now. When it's common knowledge, he wasn't born on that. I got another one I can read about that from another encyclopedia, and it just say this. It said, scholars do not know. I don't even know which one this is. I got to look it up. It's, I forgot which one this is. This might be the same New Standard. This is New Standard. It says, scholars do not know the exact date of Christ's birth. For more than 300 years, people observed his birthday on various dates. In AD 354, approximately 350 years after Jesus was born, Bishop Liberius of Rome ordered the people to celebrate on December 25th. He probably chose this date because the people of Rome already observed it as the Feast of Saturn, celebrating the birthday of the sun, S-U-N. So they already was doing this. So now you doing something totally different, but at the same time you rejecting what God said do. Now, let's go to Jeremiah 10 and look at this easy to see custom that we still following today. Jeremiah 10, pick it up at verse 1. Jeremiah 10 and verse 1. Read it.
Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. So
again, he's telling Israel how to worship him and how not to worship him. Don't do what everybody else doing. And this is still what everybody else doing today. Hear this word, O house of Israel. Go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord, Learn not the ways of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven.
So don't follow what everybody else is doing. Don't learn the way of the nations, the heathen, and don't be dismayed at the signs of heaven, because that's what they are. They dismayed at what the sun is doing. That's why they called it the rebirth of the sun. They was already celebrating it, the birthday of the sun, S-U-N. They concerned with what's happening. So he told Israel, don't be like that. Go ahead.
For the heathen are dismayed at them. Verse 3. For the customs of the people are vain.
So they got some vain customs, God said. What is it?
For one cutteth the tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with an axe. They deck it with silver and with gold.
See, they go get a tree. They've been doing this. This ain't nothing new for our time. It's been going on. It just came down to us. Continual tradition. They cut a tree out the forest, the work of the workmen with the axe. And then he said, that verse 4, they do what again?
They deck it with silver and with gold.
Deck means to decorate, brothers and sisters. They've been decorating it with silver and gold. Whatever you got, you putting some on. People stand up late at night. Give me some more string. And they putting string on. They putting this on it. Doing it. But we don't understand why. It's just a man-made tradition. You say it's Jesus' birthday, that's common knowledge. It wasn't. Don't have nothing to do with Jesus. Something has to constitute having another God. So you going to say it's his birthday. It wasn't his birthday. Who are you honoring? It's not him. They deck it with silver and gold. Go ahead.
They fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not.
Skip to verse 8. Because the tree not going to move. You got to move it. Go ahead.
But they are altogether brutish and foolish. The stock is a doctrine of vanity.
See, the stock, worshiping the stock of a tree is what he's talking about. He tell you that further in Isaiah 44. Worship the stock of a tree is a doctrine of vanities. And we still doing it. But we reject what the Lord say. We don't nobody know about the Feast of Tabernacles. Don't nobody pay attention to the Passover because they're too busy doing Easter and, you know, Good Friday and all of that stuff. They don't pay attention to the Tabernacles and none of God's last holy days because they only worried about stuff like Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Let's go to Leviticus 11. Back to the law, because the title is you reject God's law to keep your tradition. Leviticus 11. Leviticus 11. And we're going to pick it up at 1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying.
Now God talking again, telling them how to tell the people to worship him. Speak unto the children of Israel. He told Moses and Aaron, tell Israel what?
These are the beasts which ye shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth.
He even giving them a dietary law concerning the animals. A dietary law for that. These are the ones you should eat. He took time to tell them. Save a little time, we're going to cut to the chase. Verse 7.
And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you.
Okay, so the swine is unclean. You shouldn't eat it. Let's make sure you shouldn't eat it. Verse 8.
Of their flesh shall ye not eat.
You shouldn't eat it. Go ahead.
And their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you.
Okay, so now people say, well, now God said this with his own mouth. The Lord told Moses and Aaron, this is what I want you to tell the people. You eat certain animals. He gave you the criteria for it. We just skipped to one of the main ones, the swine, which is pig. He is unclean, don't eat it. This is what the Bible say. Now, again, we got better ideas now. We say, well, you know, it changed. We got a lot of traditions say you could pray over it. You could do this. Let's go to Timothy. I should have put this in here. Go to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy, the 4th chapter. 2 Timothy, the 4th chapter. 1 Timothy, the 4th chapter. I'm sorry. 1 Timothy, the 4th. 1 Timothy, the 4th. Because this is where people will come. And I'm going to show you what this really means. 1 Timothy 4 and verse 1. People come and say, just pray over it. Matter of fact, just read verse 4 at first. And then we're going to figure out what it really means. But this is what they say just to get around Leviticus 11. Say, oh, that don't mean that. You could just pray over it now. Or God said it back then, but now it don't matter. God don't get down like that. 4 and 4, read it.
For every creature of God is good and nothing to be refused, if it be received with thanksgiving.
Okay, so now people read this, they say, every creature of God is good and nothing to be refused to be received with thanksgiving. So they say, see, all you got to do is just pray over it. Because he mentioned verse 5, he mentioned for it is sanctified by the word of God and prayer. People say, just pray over every creature of God is good and nothing be refused. Look, we all creatures, brothers and sisters, first of all. We all us in here is creatures. So if you just take that out of context, first of all, people don't read it in context. Is he just saying we could eat anything outside his dietary law? One thing about these people, the dietary law was understood. Paul didn't eat no swine. Jesus, Peter, none of them. You read Acts 10, the Lord told Peter, rise, kills, eat. It was a vision. He was trying to show him about preaching to Gentiles, but he told him, rise, Peter, kill and eat. Peter said, I ain't never ate nothing like that. I ain't about to. That's my words, but that's pretty much what he was saying. And he didn't eat nothing. It was a vision. But it looked like in the vision, it was telling him to eat some of this stuff he never ate, unclean stuff. That's what it said. It was all kind of stuff. Peter said, I have never eaten anything common or unclean. So none of them didn't do it. That was not even a question on the table for debate. So you can't take it out of context. Like I said, if you go by that, we all creatures. If you got a relative die, that's a creature. Should we eat her or him? Because we all creatures. Every creature is good and nothing to be refused. You got some creatures you know you wouldn't eat. But if that's the case, go ahead, let's eat it. Let's eat some of that crazy stuff. Mouses are creatures. Well, some people eat them somewhere. The Bible will tell you that. But around here, sister don't want to see a mouse. So, but you got some sisters in traditional churches that think you could just pray over swine. Well, pray over the mouse. Go ahead. They go, no. No, every creature is good, nothing to be refused, right? But you got to read in context. So now let's back up to verse 1 and really see what he was getting at. It wasn't telling you it's okay to eat anything and break God's dietary law. He really was addressing something else. So this is how people take it out of context, though. Go ahead, verse 1.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times shall some depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils.
So this is what he's talking about, brothers and sisters. It don't have nothing to do with changing Leviticus 11, what we read, or anything like that. He's talking about some ugly stuff that was going to come, how they was going to get away from start making up some other stuff, some more tradition. He said, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter time, so it wasn't happening yet, some shall depart from the faith and do what? He said, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines, teachings, that's doctrines, of devils. So we should be very careful what we try to make something out to be. That cannot be, what he getting ready to tell us cannot be that it's okay to eat swine, because you call in the law where he said don't eat swine a doctrine of a devil, and that came out of God's mouth. So he's not trying to erase the dietary law. He's trying to tell you one about a doctrine of a devil, and we're going to see what they are. But he knew it was coming from these people. Go ahead, verse 2.
Speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared within hot iron.
Oh, they just messed up. You can't tell them nothing either. You can't tell some of these people nothing. You can't tell the ones that's bowing down to a statue that you shouldn't bow down to a statue. They just gone. You can't tell them that, even though it's clearly in the Bible. You can't tell them this. What? Verse 3.
Forbidding to marry.
Wait a minute. Now, this is what he's talking about. He said, I'm about to tell you about some stuff they're going to be doing in the future. They're going to be dealing with some devilish stuff. They're going to make up some doctrines of devils. See, again, this is how you get away from God. You make up your own little teaching. That's what he said. Pay attention to verse 1, brothers and sisters. This is serious. He said, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter time, some shall depart from the faith. That means they was in the faith at one point. But they're going to go their own way, not do something different. Depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. What are these doctrines of devils given by seducing spirits? Where he getting into it. What is it, verse 3? The first one he mentioned, forbidden to marry. You mean that's a doctrine of a devil? Exactly. Because God never said a religious man, a man of God, couldn't be married. But you got religious people say that. You got church people say that, men and women. They said, if you're going to be a priest, you must be celibate. Read that to me in the Bible. You can't read that nowhere in the Bible. And you see the havoc that it creates when you try to do something that God was not telling you to do. But this is what Paul is telling you about. You see, when you start trying to put your own stuff in there, people been coming there for years just to say, well, you know, we can eat swine now. That ain't got nothing to do with this. He gonna get to the meat part too, but it's all in the same vein, what they making up. So he said that this doctrine of devils, one of them is forbidding to marry. God never said a priest couldn't be married or a woman of God had to be a nun. He never said that. He didn't come up with that. That's man-made. What else though?
And commanding to abstain from meats, which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth.
See, I ain't commanding nothing. I only read the Bible telling you what the Lord said with his own mouth about don't eat swine. But these people commanded to abstain from meat, period. The same ones that say you can't get married, some people can't get married, they say, well, you can't eat no meat. This is what this is talking about. So you can't read nothing else into it. So the doctrines of devils is that they telling people they forbidden to marry, and they commanding people to abstain from meats. God didn't never say you couldn't eat no meat. He ain't never said that. Matter of fact, he told you which ones you should eat, which ones you shouldn't. He never said don't eat no meat. But the same people that say the priest can't get married, the same people say you can't eat no meat at times. Like they even had a thing, meatless Fridays, not too long ago. You can't eat no meat on Friday. You can't eat no meat during Lent. You shouldn't eat no meat here. They been had this stuff. No meat. He ain't talking about certain meats like the dietary law talking about. They said no meat. Forbidden to marry and commanded to abstain from meats which God have created to be received with thanksgiving. Well, God have created some meat to be received with thanksgiving. And he go further to say, of them which believe and know the truth. Then you get to every creature of God is good enough to be refused. That's with understanding. Every creature is good, but all of them wasn't meant to be eaten, brothers and sisters. But now, let's go and read it. Let's go last 2 million years, page 215. This is the last little history we're going to read. Last 2 million years, page 215. This is under growth of the monastery. We're going to read a little bit of that, then we're going to skip to the next page, which is down below. Go ahead.
Growth of the monasteries.
Growth of the monasteries, because this is this guy, years ago, Benedict, a Catholic priest, and that's when they started having monasteries, you know, where they separate themselves from regular life, live in the, you know, monks and all that, and which they done found in some of the monasteries, some stuff was going on that shouldn't have went on there. Because again, you're going to put men and women in a convent or a house together and say, well, y'all can't be together now. Yeah, okay. So they got records of some of that stuff. Not to mention when you try to do some stuff, some doctrine that God didn't give you, all the little scandals dealing with, pedophilia. All that's going on because you got men trying not to be men. But go ahead, read that. Growth of the monasteries.
In every country, the popes had other powerful and dedicated instruments. The monasteries. The notion of withdrawal from the world to escape from its vices and seek salvation through self-denial and even physical agony was very old. St. Simeon Stylites, 390 to 459, set a standard for victory over the flesh when he spent 35 years on top of a pillar 60 feet high at Telenessa.
35 years, goodness. They just making it up, but go ahead.
Near Antioch in Turkey. But the monks, as well as withdrawing from the world, also returned to it, their energies renewed by prayer and meditation to carry out the work of Christ.
Okay, so now skip down to the next paragraph when they deal with this guy who really pushed the monasteries and set it in order. Benedict, go ahead.
In 529, Benedict drew up his rule of regular.
So he's a Catholic priest, Benedict. Matter of fact, the last one was named after him. He was Benedict XVI. But go ahead.
Which was gradually adopted by most monasteries in the West. The regular required the monks to take vows of poverty.
So this is what it required the monks to take vows of poverty if they was going to follow the rules in the monastery. Take a vow of poverty, which, the Bible don't speak against that, but go ahead. Chastity, that's what Paul just warned us of, that they was going to come along and say you can't marry. That's what chastity refers to, that they couldn't get married. They couldn't have no wife. The monks couldn't. Go ahead.
And obedience.
What else?
And their monastery was organized as a family. Under the abbot, the word comes from Greek abbas, meaning father.
Go ahead.
Life in 6th and 7th century monasteries was severe, but not harsh, being divided between sleeping, working, and praying. The monks had a pound of bread, 2 cooked dishes, and a measure of wine each day, though eating meat was forbidden.
Though eating meat was what?
Forbidden.
It was forbidden. Eating meat was, who said that? That's not biblical. Matter of fact, Paul warned you that the people would come along with doctrines the devil was saying you can't get married, having people follow that. You can't get married and you can't eat no meat. That's what that was about. That's what Paul was telling Timothy about. Let's wrap it up. Go to Matthew 15. Matthew 15. But this is it. This is truly how the world is. We've been rejecting God's law to keep tradition. Matthew 15 and verse 1. Matthew 15 and verse 1. You can read it when you get there.
Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying.
Now these religious guys, they come to Jesus and they got the audacity to do what? Go ahead.
Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders?
See, they asked Jesus this. They say, why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? See, people get so wrapped up in tradition just because it's been going on for some years. They question Jesus about it. Why do they transgress the tradition of the elders? What was that tradition?
For they wash not their hands when they eat bread.
So that was their tradition. Just like we got tradition of Easter and Christmas and got a New Year in winter and all this other stuff to get away from God, what God said. They even got tradition of bowing down to statues, which break the second commandment. So to get around it, you just erase the second commandment. Just tradition, though. So they had tradition. They brought it to Jesus. What Jesus think about their tradition? Verse 3.
But he answered and said unto them, why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition?
That's what you should ask people, brothers and sisters. Just like Jesus asked them. Why do you asking me about tradition. People ask me, why you don't do Christmas? Some people even get sad, oh, you don't believe in Jesus. They're like, yeah, I do. That's what I don't do. Christmas don't have nothing to do with Jesus. I ain't never known what a tree had to do with nobody's birthday. But that's tradition. Jesus answered them a question. Why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? And he's not going to stop. He's going to give them a concrete example, and we just had plenty concrete examples, brothers and sisters. Go ahead.
For God commanded, saying, honor thy father and mother.
Well, we did read that. We know that's the 5th commandment. Honor your mother and father. That's the 5th commandment. In Jesus' book, that's still good. That means the 2nd is still good that they erased. The 4th is still good that they changed into making it about Sunday when it's not. All of them still good. Jesus said, I'm going to show you what you do. You're going to tell me about some tradition. Why do you break God's commandment? God commanded, saying, honor your father and mother. And what?
He that curses father or mother, let him die to death.
And if you curse your father or mother, you're supposed to die to death. But what did they come up with, verse 5?
But ye say, whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, it is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. So they had a reason. It's always an excuse to get around keeping that commandment. They said, well, if I take care of my mother and father, I'm free from that. I don't really have to follow that. I can curse them out. I can do whatever. Evidently, I can do whatever. I'm free from that because they live with me. I take care of them. I pay all their bills. So if they get on my nerve, I do whatever. Look, that don't absolve you from keeping that commandment. So they had an excuse to get around that command, and it just went on and it became tradition. This is the way we do it. We ain't got to worry about that. Same thing with us going to church on Easter Sunday and don't even know nothing about the Passover. That's all about Jesus. We follow the tradition. We do away with what God commanded in his law. He said, God commanded, say, honor your father and mother. He that curses father and mother, let him die to death. But you say, whosoever shall say to his father or mother, it is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me. So if you tell your mother and father that, he said, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have you did what again? Made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition.
See, you made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. And we doing that across the board now. What did Jesus? Jesus didn't pull no punch. What did he say? Verse 7.
Ye hypocrites.
Jesus called them straight up hypocrites. Go ahead.
Well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying.
He said, Isaiah talked about y'all, and it fit like a glove. And it fits to this day. Go ahead.
This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth.
We praise him. We praise God to death. Go ahead.
And honor me with their lips.
We honor him with our lips, but what?
But their heart is far from me.
But their heart is far from me. So we got all this false worship. Even call ourselves worshiping the Lord according to some man-made stuff. You call yourself worshiping Jesus on a day that has nothing to do with him. That's honoring the Son. That's serious stuff. So what are you doing really? Verse 9.
But in vain they do worship me.
I wish somebody tell their neighbor that. You can be worshiping the Lord. The Lord ain't even paying no attention to it. It's for nothing. He said, you're doing it in vain. It's not about me. In vain they do worship me. Go ahead.
Teaching for doctrines the commandments of men.
Because it's commandments of men. It's tradition. Man made it up. And man made up all the stuff we've been reading about. Man changed the 10 commandments where now you can bow down to statue. You can forget about the 7-day Sabbath and just go to church on Sunday. You can have your own different New Year's and celebrate that in the wintertime. Christmas and Easter. All this pagan stuff. You can eat anything. Then you can make up stuff saying a man can't be married and a woman can't be married, which is going to create all kind of other problems. You make up your own tradition, but you're ignoring. The same people say you shouldn't eat no meat on Friday. They say you can eat swine when you do eat meat, though. That's just ignoring what God said, making up your own tradition. So he said, in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Let's go to Daniel 7. 2 more after this. Daniel 7. And Rome, by the way, is the fourth world ruling empire mentioned here in Daniel 7. So, of course, being that they supposed to rule till the Lord come, no wonder we got the Roman Catholic Church that then gave all this bad stuff. Gave us all this tradition that we follow. Daniel 7:23. Daniel 7:23, read it.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom of the earth.
See, these beasts mean kingdoms. So the fourth beast that Daniel saw, which was a dreadful and terrible beast, it was representing the fourth kingdom on the earth, which is the Roman Empire, still ruling today. People don't know it. Go ahead.
Which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings.
We ain't dealing with all of that, but it all means something, but go ahead.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High.
This is the bottom line, because it's coming down to the end of the world. This empire got a leader that's speaking great words against the Most High. This is actually the religious leader, which is the one sitting in the seat of the papacy. He shall speak great words against the Most High, because everything he say is different. Go ahead.
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
And he going to do that a little bit longer, a little bit more. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High. He really taking us down to the end, to tribulation, great tribulation. Go ahead.
And think to change times and laws.
And think to change times and laws. Doing it their own way. But see, the thing is, they can't make you do it right now. In a little bit, that's what great tribulation is about. They're going to force you to do it again. They're going to force you to bow down to images. To an image, a beast, a statue. They're going to force you to do it. If you don't do it, they're going to kill you. See, they don't have it like that right now, but they're working on getting it back. And they're going to enforce it. He said they're going to think to change times and laws. Go ahead.
And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and dividing of time.
That's what let you know it's great tribulation, 3.5 years. Go ahead.
But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end.
See, some people think tribulation 7 years, but they messed up one scripture on that. But it's 3.5 years, and then that's when Jesus is going to come back. And when Jesus come back, what's going to happen?
And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High.
So you ain't going up to heaven. The kingdom going to be under heaven, under the whole heaven. He's going to take it from Rome and give it to his saints. The meek shall inherit the earth. But go ahead.
Whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him.
Okay, but it said at the end, this man going to be try to think to change times and law. And that's in the religious sense, because he going to enforce, since people want to reject what God say, he going to enforce you rejecting what God say by your tradition. Psalm 119. Then that's why Jesus got to come and do something about it. He don't like that. Because this is what man has done. They done changed everything that God say. Even in our traditional churches, they would openly say, we don't need the law no more. We're like, what's wrong with God's law? We read the 10 Commandments. Ain't nothing wrong with none of that. Where can you find an error in it? Is it okay to steal, not kill, commit adultery? No. So it shouldn't be okay to have no false gods. It shouldn't be okay to make graven images. 119, Psalm 119. 119 and one verse 126. Read it.
It is time for thee, Lord, to work.
It is, right now. It's time for the Lord to work. Why?
For they have made void thy law.
And this is the problem. They made void his law. This is Psalm. It's just a matter of time, too. The Lord about to do something about this. He says, time for thee, Lord, to work. Why? For they have made void thy law. And we got all this tradition. Let's see the work he going to do. Isaiah 24 and 1. Isaiah 24 and 1. Because the Bible lets you know in 2 Thessalonians, the first chapter, that Jesus is coming back in fire, with flame and fire, with his holy angels, with his mighty angels, to bring vengeance on the world. The people that's disobeying him, make void his law. He going to deal with them. He coming in flame and fire, the Bible tell you. It tell you that in Isaiah 65. He going to come with these chariots of fire. 66, I should say. 66 and 15. And it tell you that in 2 Thessalonians, the first chapter. But look what he said here in Isaiah 24, and this is it. 24 and 1, read it.
Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof.
This is what he's going to do at the second coming. Go ahead.
And it shall be, as with the people, so with the priest. As with the servant, so with his master. As with the maid, so with her mistress. As with the buyer, so with the seller.
He's going to change everything. He's going to flip it all around. And everybody going to be in the same category. The Lord is no respecter of persons. Everybody going to get the same treatment. Go ahead.
As with the lender, so with the borrower. As with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him. The land shall be utterly empty and utterly spoiled, for the Lord hath spoken this word. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish.
Now, why is it so bad? We're going to find out that it boils down to what we're dealing with. Rejecting what God say and doing our own thing, that's a recipe for disaster. Go ahead.
The earth is defiled. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof.
See, the earth is messed up right now. The whole world is messed up. Things is backwards, going the wrong way. Everything is crazy. It's upside down. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. Why is that? Go ahead.
Because they have transgressed the law.
Because they have transgressed the laws. Go ahead.
Change the ordinance.
Change the ordinance. You breaking what God say do. You changing what fits you, whatever you want to change it to. What else?
Broken the everlasting covenant.
So he going to do some work for that. He going to fix it. What he going to do?
Therefore have the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left.
That's what's about to happen. When Jesus come back, he going to burn up the inhabitants of the earth. Even 2 Peter 3 tell you that. He going to burn it up. Turn that right quick, just to make sure you understand. This ain't something just was back here. 2 Peter 3. He said the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. This is clearly, brothers and sisters, when Jesus comes. 2 Peter 3. Second Peter 3, and pick it up at verse 10. Go ahead.
But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat.
Fervent heat. Go ahead.
And the earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up.
See, this future for sure, brothers and sisters. This ain't something for back in Isaiah. It's coming. Go ahead.
Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of the God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat.
He said, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. This is what's about to happen. We're going to end on that note. Hope you got some understanding in Jesus' name.